Hi, this is Pop Shots. This is episode 2, all around the world of publishing and AI. My name is Dr. KK. I'm Innovation Officer at Enago and Trinka AI, and I have with me Tony. Tony?
Hi, I'm Tony O'Rourke. Great to be here again. I look after our publisher relationships here at Enago. Good to be here again.
Right. Tony, could you explain what Trinka is, what Enago is, and what Pop Shots is quickly?
Okay, yeah, I'll do that very quickly. So we're a language services business. We provide editorial and translation services for any type of customer. I focus on the academic side of things, but our business goes right across the board, particularly on the translation side. Trinka is an AI. It's an AI universe for us. It's a kind of a suite of tools that we provide to authors, to publishers, to editors who need support in terms of the creation and management of academic content. So it's being used by publishers and researchers all over the world.
Right, and so we started Pop Shots last week. It was episode 1. Did you have any feedback coming in from your friends about it?
The only feedback I had was they thought it was a conversation about going to the pub before they actually logged on. But apart from that, no, it was positive.
Well,
but,
yes,
I do welcome feedback. Anyone watching this stream is very welcome to send us ideas for topics that you'd like us to discuss, as long as it's relating to this area.
Yes. So, I mean, as a description of what Pop Shots is, I think, we, Tony, you and I have been discussing offline and online in other meetings, all the developments in the field of publishing, academia, AI, language and technology. So this is just an extension of that. It is a weekly, episodic, I would say conversation. It can be called a stream or a podcast or whatever it is. We talk about the latest and the greatest news in, let's say, AI and publishing. And so this we are trying to keep a lighthearted title, theme, or a streak running, and this week's or this episode's title is All Around the World. And we have a shared
why is it called All Around the World, KK? Do tell me why you decided to call it All Around the World.
Well, the first episode was a song reference to Annie Lennox's No More I Love You. So, and we have big news coming in. British rock band Oasis has announced its reunion and a new tour. So I had to select something based on what we are about to talk about, and we have news coming in literally from around the world. So that is the reason why. So that is why this episode is called All Around the World of Publishing and AI. And Tony, maybe at the end of this episode, maybe I'll ask you about Oasis, maybe I'll ask you about something else. And but we have a lot of publishing industry news to talk about. So are you ready for?
I have an opinion.
Yes, and I heard you sing one song, which is one of my favorite songs. Anyway, so we'll talk about songs and everything later, but we will have to start to discuss the topics on, we have about 7 or 8 stories to talk about. So the first one, I'm going to shift to sharing my screen. Tony, let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see the screen, yeah.
Yes. So this article, this is the first talking point on our agenda. So this is the research papers, and this is the reason why I decided to title the episode All Around the World. So we have research coming in from Queensland University in Australia. So the research paper is titled "Researchers Are Willing to Trade Their Results for Journal Prestige. Results from a Discrete Choice Experiment." So let me give a quick rundown. So it seems to be an interview sort of a survey, questionnaire survey, where researchers were asked to consider 2 hypothetical journals and decide what they would prefer among these 2. And these 2 hypothetical journals varied in their impact factor, formatting requirements, speed of peer review, helpfulness of peer review, editors' request to cut results, and whether the paper would be useful for their next promotion. And it turned out, not to anyone's surprise, Tony, that the researchers were more interested in the journal's impact factor, and they are willing to compromise on formatting and even not displaying some of the results. So,
that doesn't surprise you, does it?
I would have to think about it, and after having thought about it for less than a second, no, not at all surprising.
I mean, listen, I've worked in academic publishing, I've worked in journals publishing for more than 20 years, and although there have been changes, and there have been trends and changes in activities and behaviour over that time, the most important thing still at the end of the day, and I'm sure it's still the case today, is this journal going to help me in my career. If I'm a researcher, I want to publish. Why do I want to publish? I want to publish because I want my peers to see me, and I want them to see me in those prestigious journals that only publish the best research. Because that kind of reinforces my credentials as a researcher. So, this is just another, I think it's a good example, but it's another example of the importance of the journal brand.
Right, but then again, it has been, I think, for the last maybe a decade or so, we know about the perils of publish and perish, right? In the sense that if there is if the researcher's main goal is to sort of build.
Can I correct you? It's not publish and perish.
Publish
or
perish. Yeah.
Publish and perish would be very different.
Well, perils of publish or perish is what I wanted to say. Anyway, I jumbled up in my mouth. So anyway, what I was trying to ask you is that there has been a sort of a drive to change that into something less sort of I would say, I don't know, unhealthy as publish or perish, and so the abstract of this paper winds up stating that despite international efforts to reduce the importance of impact factor, it remains a driver of researchers' behavior, and the most prestigious journals may have the most partial evidence, as researchers are willing to trade their results for prestige. And if at all I don't know if you had a chance to go through this, researchers have said that they do not mind not publishing some of the results depending on the nature of the journal, and that choice is based on impact factor. So Tony, is there a future where impact factor will not be such a huge thing determining?
Oh gosh. I mean, that's such an open question. I think there's a lot of pressure to add other types of metrics, and other types of metrics, as we both know, have been added to the ecosystem over the last 10, 20 years.
Right.
H factor, eigen factor, etc. However, it's still, whether we like it or not, I'm neutral on this. The impact factor is still considered to be the standard, the gold standard when it comes to measuring the journal and measuring the performance of an article in the journal, and also then measuring the citation performance of the author.
Right.
I'm sure something different, but something bigger, an alternative will come along. But I think it's going to have to go a long, long way to push the impact factor off its pedestal. And I think, rightly so, it's on its pedestal because it has been so useful for such a long period of time.
Right. The new, I would say, modern means of measuring an impact. I think a lot of new alternative metrics and bibliometrics are there.
Oh yeah, some of the fantastic metrics out there as well.
And do you think any of them will catch up and eventually replace?
I think some of them are going right up there. We all think of the alt-metric donut, for example.
Right.
You see that such a lot now.
Right.
And the H factor and other types. But it's going to take a long time, I think, before anything replaces, if at all, the impact factor. It's such an important score.
Well, talking about long time, I have some hopes on the changing landscape because of let's say the advent of, let's say, large language models like ChatGPT. I mean, maybe there are ways in which researchers can take some of the workload away from whatever they do, and they focus on actually creating high quality content, and maybe focus less on impact factor, because other things will eventually make the research rise in the world audience. So anyway,
and you look at some of, sorry to interrupt you, Kage, let's look at some of the funding programs over the last 10, 20 years have tried to move away from journal-specific performance to other measures, other metrics.
Right.
I looked at great adoration, for example, here in the UK, at the Research Excellence Framework that was introduced by JISC some years ago, which is looking not just at where the author is publishing or whether the author is publishing, but also what impact is the research having.
Right.
So I do think things like impact scores, and there isn't really yet, at least not to my knowledge, a definitive metric for impact.
Right.
Those impact scores are going to be increasingly important. What impact is this having? What impact is this research having on my peers, on my research community, and on the broader community, the general public? I think those sorts of metrics are going to arrive if they're not already there.
Right. Let's hope for a better future because there's a lot of different, I would guess, technologies or new technologies coming to help the researchers' workflows. And one such technology is obviously, I just mentioned it, large language models. And there's a lot of conversations. There are a lot of conversations around like, can large language models help in peer review? And Tony, before I switch to the next, this is a big research paper. It is actually a dated research paper. But at the same time, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence in peer review? Quick thoughts.
I think there is an increasing role. I think some of the routine tasks can already be taken away and done by AI. I think there's still a role for human intervention as well. I think we're ultimately working towards a hybrid AI human model. We're not. I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yes,
but there is certainly there's a lot of ground being made.
And there is a lot of positive news, which is our second story that we're covering. And this is a research paper published in the last year's October, and I've been reading it. I've been using it as a reference because as part of Trinka AI and as an innovation manager, I have to keep being educated about what's happening out there. And this paper was, I think, a foundational paper for me to understand how large language models and AI can help in peer review. So I'll just summarize as I did. So some of the highlights are easy annotation helpers for me. So the paper's title, Can Large Language Models Provide Useful Feedback on Research Papers? Now, I would, without reading any research, I would think that yes, because large language models are after all very good at going through a lot of text and giving you useful feedback on it. So basically what the researchers did, they created an automated pipeline using GPT-4, which is one of OpenAI's large language models, and they asked it to provide comments on the full PDF of scientific papers, and they evaluated this GPT-4 feedback through 2 large-scale studies. So they used, I think, 15 Nature Family Journal papers, journals, and with about 3,100 papers in total, and ICLR machine learning conference paper. This is also a very useful data set if at all you want to use it for training. That's what I've learned. And what they found is that there is significant overlap between the AI and the human reviewers. And so the average overlap is, I think, 30% for Nature journals and 39%, which is about 40% for ICLR. And it is comparable. So Tony, I'll take a break here and I'll ask your opinion. It is comparable to the overlap between 2 human reviewers, which is less than 30. And I was startled to see this. So basically AI to human, let's say you and I are reviewers, and if we were to compare our notes, we will agree only on 29%, whereas AI and you and AI and me will agree 30 to 40%. I thought that was fascinating. What are your thoughts?
I think it's fascinating. I think there is a role for AI within the process. For example, there is an increasing demand for quick decisions in review, or at least quick informal decisions in review. And maybe AI can be used as part of the screening process before formal peer review can start. But I think I'm not 100% certain I understand this research, because this is, if I understand this rightly, this paper was providing and doing analysis on papers that had already passed peer review.
Yes,
and the reality is, if there's going to be any use of, I think, peer review, AI in peer review, it's not once a paper's published. It's to support the publisher to screen papers, to help them identify which papers should be going through to peer review, and those papers that aren't relevant. And that could be things like, is this paper in scope? Is the science in this good? Are the statistics correct? Are the numbers correct?
Right.
Those sorts of things. A lot of those things can be screened during AI, but ultimately, so the AI screens the first part, but then there should still be some kind of AI-assisted human intervention to make the final decision.
Yes. So just to clarify, so I think the last point clarified, because I was about to say, I was about to sort of present my argument as to how even after screening, an AI-assisted peer review can help improve the like optimize the workflows of a peer reviewer. So what they seem to have done is basically you have peer review records of all these papers published in Nature and ICLR, and they compared that data set with the AI generated reviews, and they looked for concordance or similarities between the review comments. So I mean, I think it's a fair methodology, and I would think that is a very good start. So the second part of the paper, I'll just quickly go through. So then they did a prospective study with about 300 researchers from 110 US institutions in the field of AI, and to understand how they would react to such a report. And more than half, about 58%, 57% of the users found the GPT generated, the AI generated feedback to be very helpful. And 83% or 82% found it more beneficial than feedback from at least one human reviewer. So basically, it is a very sort of a green sort of a flag, I would say, or a signal in terms of the way forward. We are not there yet, but maybe this is the way forward, and eventually.
The one thing I would also say, KK, to be fair, is that this was addressing an audience of computer scientists.
Right.
If there's another audience that's more interested in the developments and the application of AI, let me know. If this paper was written with medical researchers in mind, or with life sciences researchers in mind, I wonder whether you'd get the same result.
Yeah. So this is obviously published in Archive. This is just an abstract, and it is in the field of computer science. So I understand your argument.
Yeah. I mean, I think, but what it demonstrates is that there is a principle, and I think that principle needs to be proven in other subject areas.
Right. So interestingly, I'll move on to the next point. This seems to be this paper that we just talked about seems to have a lot of researchers from China, and the next point is about research in China. And Springer Nature has published a new report which is titled Global Research Pulse China. So, Tony, have you gone through it? Do you have any preliminary thoughts?
Yes, I saw this when it came out. Yeah, I mean, this is no great surprise.
Right.
China has become the powerhouse for academic research.
Right.
They've invested, the Chinese government and the research organizations have invested billions of dollars over the last 20 years to pull up Chinese research to another level.
Right.
I think what this is an interesting paper. What it doesn't really show though is the number of actual papers that are being written to get to that level.
Yes.
If they're submitting, 800,000 papers are being published, how many papers does that actually relate to?
Yes.
Or equate to?
So in summary, this is a new I guess report that will be published regularly, I think, by Springer Nature, and it is intended to support Springer Nature's editors and China. Yeah. It just mentions that China is the largest contributor, but also I was very curious to learn more about the significant step to increase research quality and manage research integrity issues.
Yeah, absolutely. The Chinese research authorities have been quite vocal about the importance of research integrity and wanting to support local researchers.
Right. So, Tony, I'm hoping to spend about 5 minutes on this report. So, just a quick, I'll read out the most important, I think, findings that I've already highlighted. So, higher levels of research citations from China is obviously because of the increasing volume, but it also shows an increased attention from international research and community. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Again, this is no great surprise.
Right.
The quality of Chinese research is getting better and better and better. And you can see that by the number of papers that are being published in some of the world's leading journals.
Right.
I don't have access to the acceptance rates.
Right.
For certain journals, but you can be certain that those figures are increasing on a yearly basis.
Yes.
I remember when I first started working in academic publishing, it wouldn't be unusual that a journal might reject 90% of papers that were written by native Chinese authors, not because they weren't necessarily good papers, but they're either out of scope or they weren't particularly well written, or the amount of work that was required would have been too great to publish that paper. That's not the case anymore. I mean, I think Chinese papers still have their challenges, of course. Understandably so from a language perspective, but the quality is undeniably improved hugely over that time.
So we can see that China is slowly, the curve is very smooth and upward looking, but there is a dip in at least in the COVID pandemic, post-pandemic years, I suppose, in EU15, I think the 15 largest nations in the European Union and US. Yeah. Now, I don't know the reason why it is like that. And then there are several interesting these line charts, and I was quite honestly, I was surprised to find Australia among the big leaders in terms of research outputs. So China's research impact has also been increasing, and it's comparable with Europe and the US. And China contributes to many much more highly cited papers than used to be, and this is across subject areas. And I was very sort of happy and surprised to see this. I mean, this is what Tony, you've been saying. It is a trend that you've been observing maybe for the last 10 years or so, but it is interesting.
20 years, 20 plus years.
Right. Right, and they have provided, as in this report provides the breakup across different subject matters, and everywhere I think China is a leader, except maybe in clinical health, where US has a slightly larger contribution. So this is all fascinating. I mean, Tony, could you explain in terms of you must have traveled to China and explored the changes when you meet our clients. So what are your sort of thoughts on correlating these findings and what the clients are telling you? What are their concerns?
Look, at the end of the day, the Chinese researcher wants to be treated in the same way as any other researcher in the world. They want to make sure their paper is handled fairly. They want to make sure that the content of the paper is being assessed in exactly the same way as anybody else. Right. And that's why Chinese authors cumulatively spend more on things like editing services, preparatory services, than any other country, because they've got that sort of disadvantage to start with.
Right.
But the desire to publish in the world's biggest journals and the world's most important research journals is as strong, if not stronger, in China than really anywhere else.
Yeah, so this graph shows an increasing trend for GDP, the percentage of GDP in research infrastructure in US and China are leading. And these are some of the universities, institutions or regions, I would say. These are the World Intellectual Property.
They're called research clusters.
Research clusters, sorry, yeah. Yeah.
So you take someone like Tokyo, Yokohama.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that's the number one in the world in terms of the number of institutions. But in Tokyo alone, there used to be something like 80 universities alone, and that's excluding national funded research organizations. And then you extend it out into Yokohama, it's even more. So it's in terms of the number of research and technology based organizations there are in those regions.
Right. And I see a lot of regions or clusters from Japan, South Korea, and China in this list, which is fascinating. Yeah. These are some of our, the regions where we have the most of our clients coming from. So this is also very interesting for us.
And if I'm a researcher and I'm deciding where do I want to spend my career, where am I likely to find a fulfilling role, and one of the first things I'm going to look at is, who else is there within a research, within a geographic area that I can be talking to.
Right. And the point that I got when I was skimming through the report was that there are a lot of policies related to research integrity. So the one that I'm aware of is starting in 2020, there's an early warning journal list, which is basically a list of journals where they are suspicious it can be a predatory journal and things like that. So have you had any thoughts or concerns from our clients expressing these kind of like predatory journals as an issue?
Well, I know if I look at the services that we provide, we talk to authors. Authors ask us all the time, where could I publish, or where should I publish my research? 99% of authors, 95% of authors have a clear idea where they want to publish or which journal they think will help promote their research, and them as an author and as a contributor to the community. But every so often, they're uncertain. And they may come up with suggestions, and we'll always highlight things like if this article blacklisted, has this article had citation retractions or retractions in general,
right?
And we'll factor that into the conversation.
Well, the last point I think I want to talk about from this paper is that as of last year, November, the government has called for a nationwide review of research misconduct, requiring all universities to declare retractions from English and Chinese language journals. I mean, this is also very important because there are a lot of retractions coming in. And as far as my research goes, a significant percentage of the retractions are coming in from well, I would say China and Chinese research authors. So this is what, and I'm hoping that there will be more such reports, so that we can, as in some of our publisher clients would also be probably interested in reviewing this and
Yeah.
aligning their strategies.
And I mean, I know China. There's been concern about, for example, the emergence of paper mills, and unfortunately, some of those paper mills are located in some of these countries.
Right.
So the government will want to do everything it can to maximise the quality of research that's coming out in the market, and really reinforce research integrity programs among their research community. It makes absolute sense.
All right. So now I'll switch to our fourth topic, which is about AI and training data. We talked about it briefly. If you remember, Tony, last week we talked about Taylor and Francis and Wiley, sharing their research papers. So there is Nature has published an article. I think this is relatively fresh. It's about 2 weeks old. The summary of the article, which is not available for us to read because it's behind a paywall, is that this article talks about whether research papers and research data has been used for training AI, and their conclusion is that it likely has been used already, and it touches on a lot of different aspects, like, for example, the researchers not wanting AI companies, let's say like ChatGPT, OpenAI or Microsoft or Google, to use their data without their permission. And it also mentions cases like the ones between I think OpenAI and New York Times, and also the content agreement that we talked about, all such things in terms of how things should be in the future. So you already expressed your thoughts in episode number 1. Do you have any further thoughts on this?
I think the sort of agreements that these publishers are entering into with these AI platforms is a natural step. It's the next obvious step. If you have, even today, so much copyright is being assigned to the publishers, so they have become the gatekeeper, if you like, for that content, and they have responsibility to make sure that content is being used in a fair way. So I can understand why these agreements, and there will be more and more of these agreements being announced over the coming years.
Right.
Are coming to the fore.
Right. So I cannot show you because in my research, I have found out that Taylor and Francis, the deal with Microsoft AI for training is about $10 million, and the Wiley deal with an undisclosed AI competitor is about $23 million. And we have other I would say, websites like, for example, the Financial Times and Reddit also have agreements. I mean, Reddit's content. Do you use Reddit, Tony?
I have used Reddit in the past, but I don't use it now.
You're right. It's one of my favorite places to hang out. I mean, it is just like, it's a weird place where you can learn a lot. But anyway, Reddit is built by its users and the content. And if suppose as far as I know, OpenAI's models are trained a lot on Reddit data, and that's the reason why the responses are so much better. That's what I'm hearing, at least in the conversation circles in AI. And I have to ask you a question. So, do you envision a future where the publisher might prefer selling data than accessing it being scraped without permission? For example, let's say Springer Nature, for example, has a lot of published data. Would they be willing to enter into an agreement to sell?
I don't need to give you an opinion. That is already happening. Publishers, organizations exist to work with publishers to create licensing agreements. Whether that's for photocopying, whether it's old school, whether it's for sharing content within a country or within a geographic region, those licenses exist. And so having an AI license is just another type of content sharing. And the publisher, I think rightly so, the publisher wants to protect its copyright,
right,
and the rights of their authors.
And there are obviously, like I think you mentioned watermarking, if I'm not mistaken. So there are techniques where you can embed some text elements inside your research.
That's not new technology at all. That's been watermarking's been there for years.
Right, but things to detect whether AI has been used to train, etc. So that those are different from the classical watermarks that you see in, let's say, Microsoft Word documents for contracts and everything. So this is an interesting.
So it's not just the publisher that needs to be thinking about this. Of course, the research institution, the institution that the researcher works for, is also deeply concerned about how its research investment is being used. So they want to ensure that their content isn't being exploited in any way.
Right. I mean, the copyright aspects of published research. If suppose I am a researcher and I'm publishing, I eventually sell that copyright to a publisher. Usually, that's what happens. So there is always
No, you don't. You don't sell it to the copy publisher. Basically,
You
what happens when
transfer
you
it.
submit a yeah,
Yeah.
there's a transfer of
Yeah.
rights. I mean, and also, and that is also subject to agreeing the level of transfer, the level of assignment you're prepared to give. That's why I think the Creative Commons licenses have been so popular
Right.
over the last few years, and so many different levels or types of licenses have been agreed.
Right. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that at least there is more conversation. At least we have talked about it for about 10 minutes over the last this episode and the last episode about this. I hope that there will be such conversation, and eventually there'll be sort of a fair.
But let me ask you a question, okay?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a good thing that papers are being used to train AI models?
For things that, let's say, AI applications that are intended for academic research and AI applications that are intended to be accurate, yes, scientific research is
absolutely.
Yeah.
But it has to be managed. It has to be controlled.
Yes, I mean, for anything that where you require accuracy, and currently the main concern with just say large language models is that it can give you whatever you ask it to give. I mean, it is not confirmed or validated, text that you're getting. So that can be partially solved by letting the research papers being used for training the large model. So I'm pro.
Did you see that? Did you see that paper that came? I can't remember where it appeared, but there's a paper that appeared recently about AI authors. Papers being submitted openly by AIs.
Yes, in fact, Tony, I could not add that to our agenda for this episode because
we'll talk about that next time.
It'll be the main topic in our next episode. So now I have to move on to the next topic, which is related to research integrity. So Tony, in your general, as in you've been in the field of publishing for I don't know how many decades. So
too many years.
Yes, too many years. You've lost hair probably because of that. Is that true?
I had hair when I started. If that helps.
All right. So, what is if somebody were to be listening in for the first time, and we are talking about research integrity, how can you summarize how is the world of research integrity in the world of publishing? What are the latest concerns? What are the main pain points for publishers, for researchers, etc.?
There are so many touch points, and maybe that we should invite one of our colleagues from Enago to come and talk about this topic, as she's much more familiar about this topic than I am. But research integrity, it's sort of everything that reinforces the journal. Is this original research? Has this content been plagiarized in any way? And if so, how much? Has the author been if it's a medical paper, for example, has the author got all the permission that they need in order to communicate this research more widely? There's a raft of different aspects that not just the author but the publisher needs to think about when considering a paper for peer review.
Right. So the point that I was trying to sort of segue to is image manipulation and image manipulation detection.
Oh, that's another really important thing, because tools have been developed over the last 5 years more to help identify where images have been manipulated.
Right.
It's something that editors used to do manually in the past. But of course, that's prone to error.
Right. So the next topic, news story is about image manipulation detection. Remember the title, Tony, all around the world. This article comes from Retraction Watch, which is a trusted source for retractions. But the article talks about research, let's say, image manipulation happening from the Middle East. So in a nutshell, the journal, I think, Curious, which is now under Springer Nature, has retracted an article for plagiarized images after the original author of the article reported it, but that there's a long story behind it. In a nutshell, the author reported that the images published in another sort of research paper were copied from some of the images that she had, I think it was they had used for a presentation or something. And so this research has been published from, I think, Saudi Arabian researchers have published it. And the primary author of the research paper, I think Ahmed Abdulaziz, I think, consulted their colleagues, and Mr. Saleh, I think it's a male or is a man, confessed that they had could not provide clear answers as to the origin of the original that image that is being talked about. And eventually this the primary author of the article wrote to the journal saying that they think that the article has been compromised and the images have been copied without attribution, and the journal curious retracted the article. So this is a classic.
Very, very, very honest of the authors.
Right. I mean, this is a classical situation for image manipulation detection. Because these days research is not limited to your institution; it is global, and it can be from. Parts of the document can be written or compiled by people from all around the world, and they could be sourcing it from, let's say, different sources without attribution, which is plagiarism. But they could also be generating content using the generative AI models, which are intended for image manipulation. They could be doctoring images. So all of these manipulations are very difficult to be detected by a human, right? Because they look sort of similar, and that's why we need tools like AI, image manipulation tools, etc.
Image twin and proofing. These guys, yeah.
So these are very useful, but in this case, at least, there is an interesting record in the sense that I guess the victim of plagiarization of the image reported it, but the journal did not act on it until the primary author eventually confessed that they think that the image has been plagiarized. So do we have from your dealings with our, let's say, our clients, businesses, etc. So where do we stand in terms of image manipulation detection? Is it rising as a concern, and is there?
Oh no, absolutely. I think this is all part of the research integrity process, managing research integrity. One of the things that the authors, the publisher, will want to do before a paper is published is not just to ensure that the research is unique, but that the image that's being presented hasn't been plagiarized from somewhere else, as you've said, or hasn't been doctored.
Right.
From somewhere else, from another source. We get asked by this. In fact, we're about to roll out a service specifically to help publishers to identify image manipulation, where we're using a well-known industry brand to do the first level of screening, but then providing an extra level of human checking to verify whether that image has been manipulated or not. Because what the tools will tell you is the likelihood, the probability of the image being manipulated, and then the human error the human check can then confirm whether it has or not.
And another thing I can confirm is that we have, as you mentioned, Tony, Trinka AI is a sort of an ecosystem. It's a large suite of applications, and we have APIs that connect with Retraction Watch, so that our citation checker can show the researchers who are using it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm talking to publishers all the time about the sort of things they want to do, things like references,
right?
And the fact that we can show them not just which papers are retracted, but also things like how many times is an author citing themselves,
right?
Which is often a warning signal for certain types of papers.
And another quick I wanted to reiterate, because we just talked about researchers' data being used for training AI models. And one of the things that we are very proud about is our sensitive data. We are a privacy-first brand. We do not use researchers or users' data to improve our products. We delete it as soon as we can, and we have our enterprise plan where we do not at all keep any of the enterprise level data. So if at all somebody is concerned about their data being used for improving AI, I think Trinka is a good brand to approach, don't you?
Absolutely. And and if a publisher says to us they want to build a unique universe just for their content, then we will train the AI just with their content,
right?
If that's what's required. But we do have to have these protection plans in place.
Right. Tony, I'm aware of time. I think we have to end this episode in a few minutes, and I have a couple of more stories before we talk about Oasis. So I'm going to move on to the next topic. This is directly related to ChatGPT and a custom GPT that somebody has developed for peer reviewing. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this? Have you checked this out?
I haven't. Tell me about it.
So I'm going to zoom in. I cannot show you a live representation, but anyway, this individual, Razia Aliani, I think you can find more about her on LinkedIn and Twitter as she's created, I think, a peer reviewer custom GPT. So the whole idea is that researchers can upload their manuscript, and she has obviously curated the back end, if I can call it, like the prompts, such that it'll generate generate very good high quality output. So these are some of the prompts that that you can this is accessible via, if you have a, I think, ChatGPT 4 or premium license, and you'll have to go to the GPT store and find it by looking for a peer reviewer. And these are some of the prompts. All you need to do is to upload a manuscript by clicking this attached file. It has to be a PDF as far as I can tell, and it gets uploaded, and within seconds there is a very like a concise peer review report. I've checked it a couple of times. I think it's a great start. So I want to know your thoughts, as in there are these people who are making peer review applications within ChatGPT. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, again, I question the usefulness of this particular of these types of tools. I think there is a role, as we said earlier, I think there is a role for AI to support the peer review process. But my concern, particularly if you look at things like medical publishing or life sciences publishing, is how accurate is that review going to be? How fair a reflection of the validity and the rigor of the research is that report going to be?
Right.
I think we're a step away yet from AI being able to provide good, rigorous, reliable peer review.
Right.
I'm not to say won't come, but I think we're a step away from that yet.
Yeah, so I cannot share a screen because I think I found it in another sort of newsletter. But anyway, the thing that I saw is that the assessment list the different sections of a manuscript with strengths, criticism, and recommendations. It's basically AI simplifying, summarizing what the strengths and weaknesses of the paper are. And so in terms of where...
Yeah, but that's not... So I beg your pardon, Keiko. That's not peer review. That's where I said that's where peer review, as AI tools and peer review are useful,
right,
is to be able to help the reviewer to make that decision, summarizing the content, summarizing the findings, highlighting areas which need to be further investigated or explored. But peer review is about also making a yes/no decision on... Is this good enough for funding? Is this good enough for research?
Right.
And tools like this can support the decision-making process, but it shouldn't be making the process, not yet.
Right. So just to confirm, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. So this is, I think, you would consider it as a pre-peer review sort of a tool or a means for researchers to use it. As in, I'm not.
I can't make any comment about this. I've not actually had a chance to look at this yet. So maybe I can talk about this the next time.
Right. But we've been talking about AI assisting peer reviewers. That's a way forward, and these should be used as tools for individual humans. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we have tools ourselves that they're in development now. We're going to be rolling something out quite soon called the Enago Peer Review Assistant. Yeah. And that, by the way, won an award recently for innovation at a leading editing conference. Because what it does is to summarize. It helps the researcher, the reviewer, by summarizing the research and identifying potential additional references that the author might want to use in order to then progress in peer review. It doesn't make the peer review decision, but it does help it makes the peer review experience that much more palatable because it's making it easier for them to make those decisions.
Well, exciting news ahead, and so there's a perfect segue to this. Unfortunately, there's a negative sort of news from NIH, which basically sent out or released a directive banning or at least not advising peer reviewers in the NIH system who are reviewing grants. And
I completely get that. I mean, that's a year old, and I'm sure that their policy is still the same.
Right. So this has been talked about, and this is in my opinion it is a missed opportunity. This is the way I would call it. I mean, I understand the challenges because if you upload a manuscript, if an individual reviewer uploads a proprietary content onto an AI, we don't know where it's going. We don't know what it's being used for. From that point of view, I agree. But I think this is a step back, even though NIH needs to do it because of the things that it is asking individual reviewers to not use it for, including grant application and patents and everything. So it is negative, but it is in line with what you and I agree on, which is that peer review should be secure. It should be AI assisted. It should always have human oversight. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And if we had this conversation in 10 years' time, maybe the discussion would be slightly different. But as it stands today, the role of these tools is to support the peer review process, not to replace it.
Excellent. So that brings us to the end of the talking points. But I have a couple of things to talk to you about.
Oh yeah.
First, I was I'm a big fan of humor and memes, and I found a meme that I wanted to show you and get your reaction. So Tony, what do you think of this?
can I just say, viewers, I've not seen this before. So, European out of office. I'm away camping for the summer. Email me again in September. American out of office. I've left the office for 2 hours to undergo kidney surgery, but you can reach me anytime on my site. Well, that's the difference in working practice in the US compared to the UK. There are advantages in the US. There are advantages in Europe.
Yes, but
I
mean, to be fair, I have only colleagues like you, and I know your practices, and that's the reason why. Because last time we talked about what you did over the summer vacation, I think summer holidays, etc. And so I thought this was an interesting thing. So I think this is more or less truthful, because I know that some of our common colleagues have extended vacations and everything. They actually enjoy their vacation, but American lifestyle seems to be, at least it's humor after all. So it's always a hyperbole.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's some fantastic stuff on Facebook and on X, on Twitter and on Instagram, for example, about the differences between, for example, French culture, French working culture, and US working culture.
Yes, but there is no dispute, or there's no controversy in a particular rock band that has inspired many, including both of us, reuniting for a tour. So are you excited? This is from BBC, as far as I know. So
I was excited until I saw how much the tickets cost. My son was able to get tickets.
Oh,
for,
really?
One of the shows, yeah. But he told me how much he spent. I think I'm looking forward to buying the Blu-ray.
All right, so I know that you're a vinyl collector. Unfortunately, I don't have a vinyl collection, but I love Oasis. Tony, as a young guitar player, maybe in the 90s, I grew up listening and being inspired and learning guitar, Oasis, on the basis of Oasis songs. So quickly, do you play a lot of Oasis songs on your guitar?
I play some Oasis songs on my guitar. Yeah, they're quite fun to play.
Okay.
I know Wonderwall was always a party piece, but
yes.
Don't look back in anger.
Yeah. All right. So for those who did not catch on, the title is based on an Oasis song, and Tony, I have a list of Oasis songs. I hope you can see it. Can you pick your maybe top 3 from the list that you sing?
Well, every one of those songs are fantastic. But I mean, if you can put me on the spot, Slide Away absolutely is one of the best rock songs ever written. Rock and Roll Star is one of the best rock songs ever written. She's Electric is one of the greatest sing-along, energizing party songs ever written.
Right.
What's the Story? Morning Glory is just a superb song.
Yep.
Every single one of those songs is fantastic.
Right. So you've picked.
If I had a playlist, it would start with Slide Away, She's Electric, and Don't Look Back in Anger.
Right. And so I'll share mine. I love Half the World Away. I think we are going to use it in one of our titles soon enough. And I love Do You Know What I Mean? This is a song that, Tony, you sang at the start of our pre-production call.
Yeah, I'm not going to sing it now.
And I think I like Cast No Shadow. These are some of the songs that I like, apart from obviously all the things that Tony mentioned. So that
and you know what, the great thing about Oasis, and to finish off this call, is they wrote. Noel Gallagher is responsible for some of the best songs of the 90s, and some of the best songs didn't even appear on their official albums. They appeared as B-sides on their singles. So songs like Acquiesce, for example.
Yeah, I love it.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful song that it didn't appear on an album until it was on a compilation album.
Yes.
There's so many fantastic songs.
Anyway, so there's a lot to learn, and I'm gonna. After this conversation, I'm gonna definitely play back, maybe if and listen to it again. So lots of things. Have you bought your guitar yet? The Pluto.
No.
Oh, sorry, Lava. Sorry, the Lava.
No, my lava is still in the shopping basket.
Okay. So
I will one of these days.
All right.
Probably Christmas. Ask me again at Christmas.
Okay. So considering time, we have to wrap up the episode. So Tony, this was fun talking with you, publishing, as well as things like Oasis and everything. So if somebody wants to know more about Tony O'Rourke, where can they find you?
Yeah, they just need to write to me at tonyo@enago.com.
And you maybe LinkedIn as well. Do you hang out on LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn, yeah. Tony O'Rourke on LinkedIn. You'll find me. Just search Tony O'Rourke Enago.
Right.
And you can find me there.
Right. And I'm available on LinkedIn and Twitter or X, and you can find Enago or Trinka on all sorts of social media platforms by simply searching for it. Yeah. And we will be streaming live on both LinkedIn and YouTube for the future episodes, and there'll be smaller, I think, smaller segment type content on LinkedIn to as teasers.
Yeah, and as I say, if you're watching this and there are topics you'd like us to discuss, feel free to contact either KK or me.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of Pop Shots 2, all around the world publishing in AI. Tony and I will catch you in the next episode as soon as possible. So until then, this is bye from Dr. KK. Tony, you want to say bye?
Bye from me.
See you.
Have a good day.
Yeah, see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.